Hi, Vanessa here. So today we're going to do a little video about a topic that I was talking about on my Instagram recently. So for anyone who doesn't know, I like to play D&D. It's really fun. I highly recommend it. And I had a beautiful dice set that I loved. And I've recently come to accept that I lost that dice set when I moved a few years back, and I'm not finding it, and that's just the end of that. So after a long, drawn-out grieving process, I finally went ahead and ordered a different dice set the other day. So they just came in, and I was really excited about it, but it got me thinking about how we could use the D&D dice for divinatory purposes, and I think this is a really fun topic. So I wanted to kind of do a little video, and like I said, I did this on my Instagram briefly the other day, but I wanted to kind of get into it a little bit more coherently and create a little bit more of a cohesive experience about how to use D&D dice for divinatory purposes. Now, there are a lot of divination tools. People read tea leaves, people use pendulums, you can use tarot and oracle. There are a lot of even divinatory dice with like astrological houses or symbols on it, or just images that can be associated with tarot imagery but doesn't have to be. There's a lot of different ways to use divination. Even something as simple as when you flip a coin, right? Or sometimes I'll use RNG to help me with deciding something or getting information. To do divination is to try to access the spirit realm, access higher consciousness in order to get information. And we use these to navigate any number of areas of our lives, answering questions and giving us guidance. So you can absolutely, I just got a piece of hair in my mouth. You can absolutely use D&D dice to do that. And I'm just going to give a really quick rundown of how I do that. Much like any other divination tool, it is what you put into it, right? It is, the most important magic that you'll ever practice is your intention, what you put out there for the universe, because your intuition is supposed to be the language through which you best communicate with your spiritual team, with the universe at large. So it matters less about doing things how other people do them, as opposed to doing things in a way that seems to intuitively make sense to you, right? So always take what I say in this regard as a guideline, not a rule, because realistically it's whatever speaks to you the most is going to be the most effective thing for you personally. So before I get started, I want to go over all the different dice. Excuse me. So first we have the lovely little D4. I don't know if you can see that. Sorry about my nails, by the way. I don't have a good excuse. I'm just not good at keeping them painted on a regular basis. I was like, I can keep up on my nails or I can make videos for you guys. So guess which one I picked today. But yeah, so we have the D4. This is also called the tetrahedron. I'm not great with the names of the shapes, so sorry if I pause a second trying to remember it. We have the lovely little cube, which you will most likely be familiar the most with because this is how a standard die looks, except for obviously using dots to denote numbers instead of actual numbers. And this is a D6. We have a D8, which is an octahedron. This is my favorite, to be honest. Let me see. So we actually have, in a standard D&D dice set, we have two D10s. We have this one right here. I don't know if you can see. Which is 0 through 9. And then we have this one right here, which is very, very similar, but it's 00 through 90. And these ones are called pentagonal trapezohedrons. That's a fun one. And then we have the D12 right here, which is a dodecahedron. And we have the infamous D20. Look at this baby, which is an icosahedron. So these are our basic dice in a D&D set. And I'm not really going to be talking about them so much for their D&D uses, although I will make slight reference to them, especially with the D20, because it's a D20, what you going to do? But I'm mostly going to talk about how I personally use them within most average divination settings. So the first ones I really want to talk about here are the D6 and the D8, so the cube and the octahedron. Excuse me. Even though I love the octahedron so much, and who doesn't love a standard cube die? It's really hard for me to say the word die instead of dice. I don't end up using them that much for divinatory purposes. Obviously, if you have something where it's, numbered 1 through 6 or 1 through 8, these can be really, really helpful. Something I do like to use these for is if I have a lot of different options in front of me, or I have like a lot of things I could do, or, say I have a list of 6 or 8 things on my to-do list for the day, and they're all equally important, and I'm overwhelmed, and I'm saying, where do I start? I write down a whole list, and I'll literally just roll one of my die about it. So this is really good for kind of like sitting and meditating and thinking about what you have to do for a day, and then that's like a way to decide. You can use it for something as like big as, like decisions for your career, or it could be as small as where do I want to eat dinner tonight. Or what do I want to make for dinner? So you can use these for stuff like that. Again, anything where you've numbered it 1 through 6 or 1 through 8 can be helpful. So like the cube is really good if I'm saying, like again, maybe saying you're doing goal setting. If I'm saying, all right, over the next 6 months, my goals are to get to this point in my career, get to, accomplish this personal goal, like master this skill. If I want to know which thing I should focus on the most, sometimes I'll roll a dice about that, or a die about that. Or if I'm focusing on a goal and I'm saying, okay, I want to get this done within the next 6 months, how long until I see a breakthrough rate? I would roll it. And if it, it just landed on 4. So I could maybe expect that within 4 months, I'm going to kind of start to see a really big breakthrough. And something I will say is that a lot of people, everybody has different rituals. This is a side note. Everybody has different rituals for the usage and cleansing of their tools. And it's very, very personal. You can cleanse your tools by putting them in salt, by cleaning them with moon water. You can cleanse them with sage smoke, or if you're somewhere where they won't allow you to have like smoke in your home, something I do is I will get sage essential oil and put it in my essential oil diffusers, and then I will run the tools throughout the air coming out of the essential oil diffuser. Little tip for anybody who's living in like an apartment or anything. But more than anything, everybody cleanses their tools differently. I do recommend for this particular type of divination, and really any pretty open-ended divination, I would recommend that you at least kind of like do a quick cleansing ritual between questions. Keeping selenite around is also a really good thing. You could keep your dice like around your selenite as a way of cleansing them really, really quickly without having to do a whole lot. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm that type of person where I forget to cleanse my stuff all the time. So making it as quick and painless as possible is always the easiest for me. But just with this, what I have to say with this, and with any divination, but especially like smaller tools like this, is that these are really great for straightforward answers or timelines. But I think it's really, really important that you set the question with a lot of intention before you roll. And you could make it where, one die is always specifically answering a particular type of question, or you could make it that you change it up to meet your needs, right? To kind of answer your specific questions. But the biggest thing I would recommend is, cleansing between uses, and cleansing it between changing the question that the die is responding to, like pretty significantly, right? So like, for example, with the D20, if you're familiar at all with the use of the D20 in D&D, you roll the D20 usually to figure out how something is going to go down, right? So if it's the closer it lands to 1, the worse the situation is going to be for you. The closer it lands to 20, the better. So sometimes I'll literally use it when I'm like, okay, I'm thinking of taking this class, how much of a good use of my time would that be? Like, I'll do something like that. So if I asked a question like that, I'd roll it, and it landed on 20. Sweet. That's cool. That feels good. So in that kind of a situation, this is like, if it lands on 20, this is a big hell yes from the universe kind of a thing. But another use for a D20 is that, if you have something coming up within the next, within the next, 3 weeks to a month, and you're saying how many days until this happens, and you go to roll, that's and we got 7 this time. That's a totally different kind of question. So if you're gonna change the usage of the die, like we have this particular die, one of the D10s, that I almost exclusively only ever use for like percentages on something, and I'll get to that in a minute. But most of the other ones, they can change their usage. So I would just recommend doing like a quick cleansing ritual between swapping their usage like a lot, and then also making sure that you ask the question and set the intention very clearly. Like decide what each thing means before you roll, because otherwise I find it's very easy to confuse myself. So if you're anything like me, I would just recommend that, but again, totally do what feels right for you. So yeah, that's the cube and the octahedron. I mostly ever use them when I'm trying to figure out small things, when I have lists of stuff I have to decide between. This is really good if it's neither an either or a question, if you have like a few options that are all equally good. And then you can kind of tease it out further. So let's say you're trying to decide between a list of things numbered 1 through 6. You roll the cube and you get 4, right? So you focus on the fourth thing. And let's say, this is places to visit, right? If you wanted to roll then the D20 and say, okay, on my list of places to visit, I'm making things up right now, sorry, like on my list of places to visit, I've got 6 places on the list. The fourth one is England. How is it going to go if I try? And obviously travel right now is hard, but you get what I mean. Like, how would planning a vacation to England go for me? And I would roll, and I got 5. So that would be not good. But you can combine the uses like that. But just in and of themselves, I find that the cube and the octahedron don't have a ton of uses for me personally, but it's completely up to you how you want to use them. So, and we have our cute little D4, our tetrahedron. And this has got numbers 1 through 4 on it. And for those of you who aren't used to rolling with this, whenever it lands, you always pick the number that's facing upright. That's always how you determine what you get. So if I roll it, yeah, it landed like this. So then 3 would be the number that's upright. And I use this a lot for timing mostly. So if I'm trying to figure out what season something will happen in, sometimes I'll start it from where, the time of the year I'm at, and then other times I'll number the seasons, spring, summer, fall, winter, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll do it that way. And so it's good to use this in juxtaposition with other dice, but I also use it for anything that might be happening within a month. So like I know within the month I'm going to get news of something, I'm waiting for news, and it's supposed to come in within a month, I could say, okay, what week of this month is it going to happen? And it landed on 4. So this would be like, okay, end of the month, right? And sometimes just knowing that can be really nice, so you're not like on edge the whole time. I will say, like I say to everybody, is that tarot has a couple different major uses. Divination in general, but I'm thinking tarot specifically at this point, has a couple of major usages, and one is as a reflective tool to kind of help you understand what's going on spiritually and energetically in any given situation, and maybe help you see things from a different perspective, and then also as a predictive tool. And it's got more uses than that. Those are the 2 big ones that I usually end up encountering and talking to clients about. And when you're using it as a predictive tool, I always say to be really conscientious of the fact that we do live in a free will world. So things are likely to shift. It's the exact reason why I don't do predictions with only a card or 2, if I can help it, because I feel like there are, so rarely are we ever involved in a situation with only our energy. There are usually a lot of other energies involved. So pulling only a card or 2 is likely to not always net the most accurate results for a prediction, because if you think about the entirety of the situation, you're only pulling a couple of cards, which means, in my opinion, you're only looking at a couple of energies, and it's probably not the whole picture. And similarly, using divinatory tools like this for straight up yeses or nos, or straight up timing, which is especially helpful with the D&D dice, are great for timing, whereas maybe a pendulum would be good for yes or nos. In situations like this, I would say proceed with caution and understand that, sorry, I have a stray hair on my shoulder, it scared me. Understand that your prediction is subject to changing as the energies change, right? because you could do everything in your power to make sure something happens, and you could do the spiritual work, right? You could do the emotional work, but if other people involved aren't there yet, there's nothing really you can do to make that happen. You can't make somebody else do the work. You can't make somebody else want something. You can't make somebody else be motivated for something. So I just kind of say that to everybody, is that you can use it predictively, but I think if you're going to do that, it's good to try to, as much as possible, get a bird's eye perspective of the situation. Because otherwise, I think, if you kind of put all your hope on just a fraction of what's going on, you're more likely to get disappointed if things change. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a disclaimer. You can also use the D4 for baseline odds of something happening. So let's see, if I were I don't know, if I were anywhere between quarter percentages, 25, 50, 75, 100%, what's the likelihood roughly that XYZ will happen? I roll, I get a 4, that's 100%. So just small stuff like that. Again, I largely will use it for timing, especially with seasons, and within the spectrum of what happens within a month. So yeah, so that's pretty much all of the uses that I can think of for a D4. And now we get into kind of more of the exciting stuff. So we have these two lovely D10s, these lovely pentagonal trapezohedrons. And this one, like I said, is pretty self-explanatory. These are all the percentages, and I pretty much only use that to figure out percentage questions, because sometimes thinking about it in terms of thinking about a percentage sometimes can be easier to conceptualize, especially with something like spiritual energy, with something we can't really see or is tangible. Excuse me. So you could say this is also really good for kind of figuring out where you are, again, really spiritual energy. So if you're trying to manifest something, you could kind of say okay, how much of my energy am I currently putting toward this manifestation, conscious or otherwise? And you roll, and it's 30, right? So that might indicate that you could either put more energy in, or if it's something you've been working on for a while and you're still only at 30%, maybe there's a blockage that needs to be addressed. And this is kind of just an energy check-in with something. Or, if you're, and I would caution you again against using this as an end-all be-all in terms of a tool to kind of assess where other people's energies are. But just to get a basic idea, you could kind of be all right, say you're working on a project with a coworker, it could be how invested in this are they? What percent? You roll the dice and you get 10%. So in that situation, I would say, maybe they're not super jazzed about this project, or about working with me, or about this idea. Maybe we'll brainstorm something else. Or, that might be kind of an indication to bring it up with them. But, and again, tread lightly, use your discretion. I have absolute full faith and confidence in you that you'll be able to figure it out. Similarly with the other D10, that's 0 through 9, I really like to use this one in particular to figure out where I am on parts of my spiritual journey. So whether this is learning a lesson, or whether this is a manifestation, this kind of makes me think of, 10s are all about completion and 1s are all about new beginnings. So this kind of makes me feel this is a good way to figure out where I am in that process. So let's say I'm trying to manifest a new friendship in my life, and I roll the dice, Okay, so it landed on 0, which means I may be completing a cycle with old friends and starting a new cycle. Or it could mean that this is kind of that, that Fool card energy where you've just wrapped up a cycle, and then a new person is going to be coming into your life not too long from now, right? So you can kind of use it like that a little bit as well to kind of figure out where you are in that particular process. You can also use this with other die. I want to say dice so badly, sorry. With another die in the set. So sometimes I will use this with a D20 if I'm trying to figure out, if I'm trying to figure out something, is supposed to happen within the next month and I want like the exact day, I'll like roll them together. Oh God, one went flying off. That's okay, we know what it was. Okay, it's back. It was on a 6. So 4 and 6 together means 10, so I could assume that, you know, over the next month, something would happen in 10 days. So you can kind of use it combined with others, but my favorite usage for this particular D10 is to kind of, again, figure out where you are on a particular journey. This can also be really good for asking questions like, you know, how many life lessons am I working on right now? And you can also use the D6 and the D8 for these as well. And honestly, the D4. So, but it's really good for saying like, how many life lessons am I working on right now? Or how many karmic lessons am I working through right now, right? Because you may be focusing all of your energy on correcting one part of your life or one life lesson, and let's say you're trying to manifest something and it's still not happening. It might be because you have a couple of life lessons you're working on, and nothing's ever perfect. We're never going to get it all the time, unfortunately, but kind of having that awareness of, you know, understanding where you are spiritually, I think is really empowering. Or I know for myself, sometimes I'll be like, why am I so tired lately? And it's like, you have these really big life lessons that you're working on. And if you think you've already completed 1, but you're working on 3, that might kind of explain like, this is why I'm, you know, emotionally and spiritually drained lately. And, you know, again, use this at your own discretion. You know, I'm not a mental or physical health professional, so please do not substitute this for professional advice. These are just examples of how I personally use them when I know that nothing else is wrong. This is sometimes good insight for like my spiritual health, my spiritual growth. So then we have probably what I think are the 2 most useful out of the dice set, although to be fair, I do use the tetrahedron quite a lot. But the 2 most useful in the dice set. So I really love the D12 for divination purposes, the dodecahedron, if you will. Just if for no other reason than it's really good for figuring out when within a year things are going to happen. You can literally roll for the month of the year if you're asking for something, you know, about a year from today. So I'm filming this November 17th. This is a timeless video. I mean, it's not a reading, so that's fine. Anyway, sorry, I went on autopilot for a split second. I'm filming this on November 17th, so I could say, excuse me, I could say, you know, between now and next November 17th, when will XYZ happen? How many months? I would roll it, and it's 7, you know, so I could say 7 months from today. Or you could ask, you know, in 2021, when will XYZ happen? You could roll, and then it'll be like, you know, it came out as 6. So you could, you know, say whatever it is you're asking about is going to happen in June. And this is a really good one to combine with the D4, because then you could say, okay, this thing is happening next June, and then it would be the 3. So in the 3rd week of next June, roughly, is when I could expect this, or June 3rd, something like that. Again, this is why it's really good to kind of set the criteria of what each roll means before you roll it. Or something else you could do, like I said, you could roll it, and if it came out as like that, where'd it go? If it came out as a 6, you could be like, okay, this is happening in June. So, you know, then you could roll the D20 and a D10 to find out what day in June, right? So we have a 19 and a 1. So it'll be happening like the 20th of June, something like that. Again, you know, use your own discretion, however feels right for you. And the nice thing about the D12 too is that you can use it to get a good feel for like your personal astrology. So let's say you wanted to, I don't know. Let's say you're like, I want to do an energy check-in. What astrological house of mine needs attention right now, right? You roll the die, excuse me, and it lands on 3. So then you could look at what's in your 3rd house as well as your Mercury placements, because your 3rd house is ruled by Mercury. It's Gemini energy, so it's ruled by Mercury. And this might kind of help you think about things like how you communicate with others, how you think about things, how you have verbal exchanges with people, how you conceptualize the world around you, stuff like that. So I really like using this particular die for that purpose. I also like to use it when I am setting intentions or for like newer full moons. Obviously, I apply it to whatever is going on with the astrology in relation to my personal chart. But sometimes this is really good for like any additional information, right? You might have another area of your chart that's affected that you're not even thinking about. So like we just had new moon in Scorpio at the time I'm filming this. So like if I were going to go set intentions, I would think about my 8th house energy. I would think about where my Pluto placements are, you know, and if I wanted to see, is there anything else I should set intentions for, I could roll the dice. And I got the 8, see? So that's 8th house, and that would just be like an added confirmation. Excuse me. So I really like the dodecahedron for that reason, specifically. Sorry, I'm getting excited, and I'm tripping over my words. And then lastly, we have the beautiful, the illustrious, the ever-popular D20. Yeah, icosahedron. So, like I said, you can use this as people would kind of traditionally use a D20 where you're rolling to see how things will turn out. And you could kind of do it like a way that, like, if you're not familiar with D&D, a lot of times when you roll to see if how something will happen, like a DM will, in their head, the dungeon master will set like a level. So, you know, if you have 1 through 20, maybe whatever it is you're asking about, they'll say, okay, you have to roll higher than a 10 to make it happen. So you can do it something like that. You can set like a check for yourself. Be like, okay, you know, if I want to do, I don't know, let's say I want to ask this person out. If I'm going to set it at 13. If it's below 13, it's not going to go super well. If it's above 13, it's going to go well. So you can also base this off of, you know, you could base this off of risk reward for yourself. You know, so if the question is, excuse me, like, I want to take up drawing as a new hobby, right? You could look at that and say, okay, well, I already have like a sketchbook. I already have a pencil set. So like, you're not really spending more money, right? You're like, I have extra time right now, so I can devote to that. So the risk is really minimal in that situation, right? There's a lot of videos online that can help you with instruction. So it's like, at that point when you're kind of like deciding, you know, when you're rolling about it, you could say, well, the risk is really low and the reward could be really high. So it could be like, you know, anything below a 5 means it might not go so well. And anything above a 5 is going to be some net positive. So that's the way you can do it. So in that example, if that was the one I'm choosing, saying like, okay, I'm going to, you know, I want to take up drawing. How will that turn out for me? Anything below a 5, not so great. Anything above a 5 is only going to be positive. So I roll. Oh no, and I got a 1. Okay. So in that situation, you know, that I would interpret that as like maybe not right now, or maybe it would be a waste of your time right now. Or, you know, it may just not be a net gain for you. You might just not make any progress. So, and I wouldn't let that like deter you from trying things, but that's just an example of like how you could kind of assess what each role means. Is you could look at it based on risk reward and set like a threshold for yourself. You could literally do this where, you know, 1 is a negative result, 20 is the most positive result, and just let 10 be smack dab in the middle. If something is like kind of a long shot, you know, you could set the threshold for it really high. So this is kind of how you can use the icosahedron in a divinatory sense. Like I said, you can also combine it with other dice in your set, excuse me, to kind of get a feel for you know, timing especially. And then the one other use that I really like for this one in particular is I sometimes will roll this to figure out what major arcana energy is like with me right now, or that I need to embrace, or that I need to you know, kind of bring more into my life. Because the major arcana, there's 22 cards. There's 0 through 21. So there's 20 on this particular die. So pretty much the way I think about that is that the 2 cards left out are the Fool and the World, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and Omega. So this to me suggests that if you are anything other than at the very beginning or at the very end of this cycle in your life, this is a good way of kind of gauging where you are in that, right? Like, this is a good way of figuring out, you know, if I'm like I'm trying to manifest more money in my life, and I wanted to know, how's that going? What do I need to know? What do I need to accomplish or embark on, or again, embrace? I would roll, and then, okay, so I got 6, which in the major arcana would be the Lovers. So in that situation, I would know, hey, maybe I should think about bringing in, you know, a collaborator or a partner, or maybe I should take some time off from work and focus on my interpersonal relationships. You know, maybe I should try to find greater harmony in my life, or have more inner peace and balance, things like that, right? So this could point you in the right direction. I think that's just about it for right now. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the comments. If you want to know more about divinatory tools, let me know, and I'm happy to make videos on pretty much whatever you guys want, spiritually speaking, of course. So yeah, I don't know, this was fun, and I hope this was helpful for you. You can use a lot of different things for divination, so don't be afraid to get creative, and remember, you know, your intuition is a very personal thing for you, and how you communicate with it is incredibly personal to you and your journey and your experience, and it's okay to do it in a completely unique way, right? This is how spirit talks to you, so it needs to make sense to you. So with that being said, there we go, I almost said set. With that being said, I hope this was helpful, and let me know what you guys think and what you want to see more of, and I will check in with you soon. Hope you have a fantastic day whenever you're watching this, and I am wishing you all of the best and most beautiful things that life has to offer. Bye.